Thanks, Sue. Good morning, Europe. Good evening, Asia. And my short presentation is going to be a little whistle-stop tour through some of the tools and platforms that are using AI in research today, and then a little look forward about what this might mean for roles for researchers and how it might change the industry. So, to start with, quick whip through a few topics that are relevant under AI and market research today, 5 ways in which it's having an impact. And the first 3 of these actually group under the same framework of natural language processing. And this is something that most people will be familiar with from the perspective of analytics. So when you look at what is happening with text analytics, particularly in areas like customer experience, so Thematic is one of dozens of platforms that will take open-ended responses from review sites, from customer feedback surveys, and extract sentiment and topic from them in order to, to understand what's happening in the customer experience. So analytics as well being applied to social media, extracting, say, themes, topics, brands, understanding how people are expressing their behavior in different categories. So text analytics for customer experience and for social media is a big part of the application of natural language processing today. The second area, really talking about interfaces, more conversational interfaces, again, using some of the same artificial intelligence tools, machine learning tools that sit within the natural language processing space. And the first of these is chatbots. And you may be familiar with some of these tools. Collect.chat actually gives you the ability to build your own chatbots, which could be for customer service or sales, but also for simple research feedback. And then there are other tools that are more focused specifically on feedback or research. This one, Wheezu, is particularly specialized in the area of customer experience feedback. So there are dedicated chatbot platforms that are being developed for research and customer experience. And then we move on to what we're kind of generally calling big qual. So the ability to run live discussions, online forums with dozens or even hundreds of people simultaneously, and have the AI actually decode and understand what's happening on the fly in order to serve up suggestions to a moderator. So you may be familiar with Remesh, Group Solver, Questa, various platforms that enable you to scale what we think of as a qualitative method to much more people. And all of these tools are really steps along the journey towards full autonomous assistance. So Rant and Rave is a customer experience feedback platform that has introduced Alexa skills for capturing feedback as an experimental trial, but we'll start to see more of these things working with the likes of Cortana and Siri, using voice to embed into the research process as these technologies mature. And the interface side isn't just restricted to collecting data. It's actually also becoming quite well embedded in analytics tools for querying data. So complex business intelligence platforms like Power BI, which can pull in data sources from web analytics, from CSV files, from Excel, from all sorts of databases, will now allow you to use the Q&A feature to question the data rather than having to understand exactly which part of the dashboard to go look at. You can ask it questions in natural language in order to get to the visualizations that you need. The third of these natural language processing areas is natural language generation, and that's the ability to create text. You may have seen some of these examples where a computer has written poetry or actually synthesized hundreds and thousands of movie scripts and created its own Hollywood film based on what's gone before. So there are a couple of platforms that will take data and you can build a model and a template in order to generate commentary on a dashboard, on data that's generated in natural language. So these tools are used for writing stock market reports, for summarizing fantasy football leagues, but you can also connect tools like Wordsmith from Automated Insights into Tableau or Click and train it to generate commentary. If you have a tracking study or if you have web analytics data, it can surface that summary in natural language. And this is a tool that's being used already in primary research by Zappi, where their standard research tools have automated commentary. It's very relatively easy to generate for this type of thing where you have a consistent metric every time you run the same report. The next area is computer vision. And this is obviously something that's very important for a lot of applications in development for autonomous driving, for robotics in factories, to be able to train a computer to understand exactly what it's seeing and react accordingly. Now, in research, we're seeing these tools being used for social media analytics, to be able to decode the content of images that are posted in social and extract brands or extract objects or understand the context of usage in a category. So Picasso Labs is one platform that allows you to do this with a whole range of different inputs. It's not just limited to social data. But you can see these are the same tools that if you use Google Images or Google Photos or Apple Photos, where there is object recognition in there to allow you to search for, show me pictures of when I was in Paris, it's exactly the same techniques and algorithms. And in fact, Google and Amazon are training their cloud services using a lot of consumer data to improve the quality of their image recognition models. There's a platform called Pixaneye, which is focused specifically on the research market. And this is an opt-in app that consumers, a certain panel of consumers will install that will decode the content of their photo library on the smartphone, and on an anonymous basis will profile them according to the content of their images. Are they regularly with family? Do they travel a lot? Do they have pets? So we'll build segmentations based on people's personal attributes that are found within their images, all fully GDPR compliant and opt-in, of course. Living Lens and Vox Popme and the various video management platforms also have object recognition running on the video that they capture to be able to identify which brands are being used, how are people behaving in certain contexts, in order to classify those alongside the transcribed text that they capture. And then finally, in this section, the ability to go beyond capturing fresh data. So you'd be familiar with A/B testing on websites of variant A versus B to see which has the greatest potential to convert. iQuant is a tool which will project the most engaging areas of an image without needing to capture fresh data. So it will actually take two images, and based on all of the learning that has been generated from prior tests, we'll, within a couple of seconds, say, here's a heat map based on what's the most or least engaging part of your image. So you'll see more of this as the models start to become more sophisticated, that we won't need to capture fresh data in order to make these conclusions. The final area I'm calling Emotion AI. It's a bit of a cheat because it draws on NLP and computer vision techniques for some of this, but you may be familiar with facial coding, eye tracking. These are tools that are being wrapped together into new models by platforms like Crowd-Emotion. Beyond Verbal recognizes the intonation in voices in call centers to understand, to identify when people are feeling stressed or angry. And again, Effect Lab is an Indian company that is gathering a lot of these inputs with the same aim, ultimately, as iQuant, to be able to project models based on all of that learning without needing to capture fresh data. So to have a model that says this is the most engaging piece of video or ad content without actually needing to go to field. So some of the ways this is impacting researchers, I think obvious from some of those examples, improve business as usual. Strategy presented on NewMR a few weeks ago with their virtualized shopper panel, which was an AI model taking 200 respondents and transforming them into 2 million for better prediction. Use of better data visualization to help guide people to make the right conclusions. So what used to be very complex statistical analysis is now very easy to represent visually to help people interpret better. So we'll see these tools, AI tools, being applied to reduce fraud on panels, to improve prediction, and to guide people through automated visualization. The second area is embedded insight. So AI tools will enable research capabilities to be embedded into other parts of the organization outside of research teams and agencies. We see this already with customer experience, with tools like Medallia and Qualtrics. In product management, you see the capacity of people digital analysts being able to capture on-site behavior alongside surveys and feedback and polls. The third area is what I'm calling expert enablement. This is a slight variation on research support skills structured around specific platforms. So similar to customer success roles that exist within software companies, we'll start to see specialist roles about enabling users on these different types of platforms: social, digital, customer experience, and so on. The fourth area, customer strategy. This is an evolution of the chief insight officer role, really, so that we have a much more commercial and strategic role for customer-centric planning. So this will be synthesizing research inputs, data analytics inputs, but also understanding the cost implications and the forward business planning implications of making customer-centric recommendations. So these AI tools will move this strategic research role away from being about functional delivery and much more about commercial impact. And the final impact for me is all of this data and the speed and the breadth that AI will enable for research will actually see a corresponding rise in the need for human empathy. So if you look at where a lot of recruitment is taking place in research at the moment, it is in user experience research for digital product development. And that is essentially qualitative, very close observation of how people behave, human factors, and in ethnography, customer closeness, the need to get executives back close to customers. A lot of this work is really driving that need for human storytelling alongside all of that, the big data, that AI delivered insights. So, to wrap this together, I think I want to leave you with one final thought about the likely forward evolution of our space. And, there's no doubt this has been a very surface level overview of what AI is doing at the moment and where it might go in the future. It is going to transform our industry. And if you look at how any economy has evolved, when you start to see big drops in unit costs, you start to see volumes increase significantly. It's a kind of fundamental law of economics. And if we take an analogy, something that has almost a completely invisible to our way of thinking today impact on our economy and our social setup is artificial light. If you lived in England in the 13th century, you lived in the dark after the sun went down. It was ruinously expensive to be able to light your home with candles. But then you can see that the cost of light tumbled dramatically around the 1800s, gas lighting, electrification towards the end of the century, and the exponential growth in the consumption of lighting that took off, and all that enabled socially and economically. And we'll see very similar, the impact of AI will be to drive down the unit cost of research activities and really to democratize them. So the incremental cost of gathering fresh data will be far, far lower. And obviously the overall volume of research will increase. But this is something that is going to change dramatically as a result of AI in the way that research is done, because more of it will be done outside of research teams and agencies than inside them. So it will be embedded into other functions, tightly integrated into other workflows, but it won't be controlled in the same way by the same departments. So that is a very brief overview of the impact of AI today and tomorrow. There is an ebook which will be published on Insight platforms, which will hopefully do more justice to some of that content. But if there are questions, I'm happy to take them now.
Thank you very much, Mike. So, Mike, lots of really interesting stuff there, and I'm sure people are sitting in the audience thinking, oh, I could try that, I could try that, I could try that. Or even thinking, I'd really like to try this stuff, but I just can't see how we would start using it at work now, whether it's spoilt for choice or making a business case. For people who are interested, what's a good way to get started? Can you suggest a plan or, a couple of platforms that are good ones to dabble in initially?
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of choices that are quite close to existing workflows. So if you run a tracking study now and it's being manually coded, there are dozens of tools available that can help to automate that. So with the natural language, with the text analytics, there are tools for that. If you are dabbling in social media research, then there are many platforms that will extend beyond sentiment and topic analysis to add image analytics. So Brandwatch, Crimson Hexagon, Pulsar, these all have the ability to pull in images as well. But I think it's more about having a budget financially and time-wise, and the kind of natural curiosity to go and have a play with some of these things. There are an awful lot of startups in this space who are keen to do demos, who are keen to do trial projects. I would say make use of that. If you're a client or an agency that is being pestered by some of these startups, then make the most of it. Then do some experiments, run some things, and see how it goes.
Okay, next up, we've got a question on voice capability.
Yeah.
And the question is, do you see this as I think it's in 2019 becoming mainstream, i.e. working well, for insights? Or are we more looking at 2024 or 2030?
Yeah, I'm kind of an outlier in this, in that I'd resisted having an Amazon Alexa. Then I won one at a research conference, plugged it in for a week, and then threw it in the box because it just didn't function properly. It might be my voice, I don't know. So I think 2019 is ambitious for voice to be mainstream. I know it's been heavily pushed. In reality, I think most of those installed users of Alexa and things have a very narrow use case around playing music or around asking Google search basic kind of factual things. So I think 2019 is ambitious. I think it's more likely to be 3, 4, 5 years out. It's like anything like this, we underestimate we overestimate the short term and underestimate the long term. There's been a lot of hype around voice generally as it killing brands and being the default, but it's not ready yet for kind of battle hardened research use.
Okay, now here's a simple question, and it's, if somebody wants to learn more about these platforms, where would they go?
Oh, well, there's a very informative website called insightplatforms.com, which is a recently started blog and directory for research tech. There's about 700 platforms listed. There's about another 150 that haven't been uploaded yet. So hopefully that's a good place to start, decent resource for people to begin learning. So thanks, Sue.
Okay, Mike, that means we've wrapped up all the questions. So thank you so much for your presentation today, and thanks for answering those questions. And I'm sure if anyone in the audience wants to reach out and ask you some more questions about this, it sounds like the sort of thing you'd be happy to talk to them about.
Absolutely, yeah. Just drop me a line, no problem.
Okay, thanks very much, Mike.
Thanks.